I am very grateful to be amongst all of you this evening. My special thanks to Yash, Avantika, and their family for opening the doors of their home to over 1,000 people. Thank you very much. One of the most precious and beautiful aspects of Indian culture is the tradition of people coming together to hear subject matters that uplift the consciousness, bring us closer to our own inner essence and nearer to God. Our Guru Maharaj used to tell us that even in the early part of the 20th century, practically everywhere, the villages, the towns, after people would work, they would gather together, many families, sometimes the whole village, to hear from Ramayana, Mahabharata, Srimad Bhagavat, have kirtan together, take prasad, and then go home. And because they were absorbed in hearing about the Lord and the great Mahants, great souls, they naturally dream about these divine subject matter. That was the tradition of entertainment in India before there was Bollywood and all other alternatives that are today afforded by society. To enrich our character, to find that inner joy that we are all seeking. That is the essential purpose of human life. The Brahma Sutra begins with the aphorism, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now that you have earned this great privilege of being a human being, what differentiates you from the lower species? The power to inquire into divine subjects. The lower species, animals, insects, reptiles, birds, fish, they are constantly asking questions, but they are generally categorized in 4 divisions. Where to get something to eat, where to find a nice place to sleep, how to make nice arrangements for mating, having children. They may not be thinking about the children, but the first part is very much an animal tendency, and to defend whatever we have. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. If we examine human civilization, it is by and large very elaborate, sophisticated, technologically developed way of answering the same questions. What differentiates human existence from the lower species is the power to inquire into the higher subjects. Who am I? Why is there suffering? What is this inevitable fate that all persons must encounter, called death. Who is God? What is my relationship with God? What is the real inner purpose and meaning of life? According to the Vedanta Sutra, when we sincerely search for these answers, that is when, qualitatively, our human existence begins. "5,000 years ago, there was a great king named Parikshit. He was grandson of Arjuna, of the Pandavas. He was the emperor of Bharatvarsha. For a slight mistake that he made so uncharacteristically, he was cursed to die in 7 days. Maharaj Parikshit, because he was such a deeply God-conscious person, he welcomed that curse as an opportunity. He had the power to counteract it. He had the power to get revenge against those who inflicted this upon him. But he looked internally and thought, this is happening by the grace of God. So he went to the river Ganga, to the association of great, great sages, and there asked them, please tell me, what is the essence of all religions? He only had 7 days. He didn't have time to study all the religions of the world, all the Vedas and Upanishads and Puranas. He wanted to know, what is the essence? What is the prime duty of a human being? And what is the most important message to understand for a man who is about to die? He was serious. Sometimes we have to be in a serious situation to become serious. Otherwise, we take things very lightly. Just like when you're driving your car. Are you really serious about remembering God? You may have your radio on, or you may even have some nice spiritual music playing, but you're driving. But if you start skidding and a big truck starts coming toward you, you become very serious about your driving and about remembering God. Unfortunately, it is the nature of human psychology. It takes a serious situation to make us serious. All the great sages unanimously selected Shukadev Goswami to speak. He was only 16 years old. Teenager. And there were people there like Vyasadev, Narada Muni, Vishwamitra Muni, Vashishta Muni, Gautam Muni, Atri Muni. We don't even know how old they were. They were there at the time of Ram in the Treta Yuga. They were there in Satya Yuga. And they asked a 16-year-old boy to speak. You see, life is about quality, it's not about quantity. Shukadev Goswami tells in Srimad Bhagavatam that better to live one moment in very deep, full, pure consciousness than a long, long life without that. Recently, I was in the Sequoia National Forest in Northern California, and we saw some really old trees. Some were 3,000 years old. Have you ever been to Sequoia National Forest? We saw the General Sherman tree, the largest tree on the planet Earth as far as volume. General Grant tree is the third largest. And it says if you hollowed it out, you can put 170,000 basketballs in it. If you don't like basketball, you could put several million ping pong balls in it. That's table tennis. And if you don't like that, if you like to drive around in your car, if you hollow it out, you could fill it with petrol. And if you could somehow connect that to your car, you could drive around the planet Earth 2.5 times. It's a very big tree. And the General Sherman tree, it says, this is all, I don't know who makes these analyses, but they do, it's all written, that if an ant looks up at a 6-foot man, he'll have the same experience as a 6-foot man looking up at the General Sherman tree. Long tree. I went there with 2 busloads of teenagers. It was quite exciting, actually. And I asked them, if this tree was to give us a message after standing here for 3,000 years, what message would he give to human society? And one of the teenage boys said, he would tell us that you should get very serious about your spiritual life or you may end up like me. And one girl, she said, I think that tree would tell us, please, all of you, come here and chant Hare Krishna and let me give up this body and go back to God. So human life is very precious because each moment is so precious. Chanakya Pandit said, the most precious thing in all of existence is each moment. Because if you lose a moment, you cannot gain it back for any cost. Shukadev Goswami, he spoke the most essential stories throughout history. For King Parikshit and for the whole world to benefit from. That is Srimad Bhagavatam. In the stories of great personalities, we learn so much of what real purpose of life and what real qualities we should strive for. So tonight I would like to very briefly speak on one such story and the beautiful lessons that are meant for everyone of how to really enrich our lives. It is a story we all know, the story of Dhruva Maharaj. We know Dhruva was just a child of 5 years, son of a king, Uttanapada. He loved his father dearly. He trusted his father with his whole heart. A 5-year-old child, how utterly dependent he is on his parents. I just read a sign on the road in Bombay. It was very nice. It said that children are like wet cement. Anything that falls on it makes a lasting imprint. Children are so impressionable. They're like little sponges. They just absorb everything, and it goes deep into their consciousness and affects their psychology, their way of life for the rest of their lives. Adults, because we have developed so much discrimination and so many experiences, we go through a whole screening process, whatever comes in. But children, they just absorb everything. So little Dhruva climbs up to affectionately be with his father, and his stepmother, Suruchi, screams at him, "You have no right to sit on the throne with your father because you are born of an inferior woman. If you want this position, you must take another birth from my womb." Now that's a great trauma. And little Dhruva turned to his father for shelter. He had no other shelter. But because his father was so much attached and obliged to this co-wife, he said nothing. When this little boy needed him the most, he was not there for him. Dhruva ran to his own mother, Suniti, lips trembling, tears pouring from his eyes, body shaking. And she expressed to him how helpless she was. What this woman told you is true. Your father loves her more than me. He was in such pain. But sometimes traumas in life are stepping stones to the greatest success. That is real intelligence. How to transform every situation into one in which we grow. And that opportunity is there for everyone in every instance in life, if we simply make the right choice. Dhruva's mother said, the only thing I can say to you, he said, I want a kingdom better than my father, better than my grandfather. It's something a 5-year-old child would say. But he was serious. She said, by the grace of God, it is possible. Where is God? Well, great souls go to the forest to find God. He immediately left. She wasn't expecting that. He left for the forest. It is said, by the mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru, and by the mercy of Guru, one gets Krishna. The Lord is within our heart. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutana yantra mudani mayaya. That the Lord, seated within the heart of every living being, according to our desire, directs us. This body is like a machine. It is like a vehicle. So in the forest, the Lord sent Narada Muni. He just happened to be in that forest. And he first tested Dhruva. You're just a boy, it's not so serious, go home. Little Dhruva said, whatever you're saying is correct, but it doesn't stay in my heart. I must have this kingdom. So Narada Muni told him, chant the names of the Lord, worship the form of the Lord, and perform some tapasya to help you absorb yourself in remembrance of the Lord. The little child did it so seriously in the holy land of Vrindavan, Madhuban, and bank of Yamuna. And within just a matter of a couple months, he saw the Lord within his heart, opened his eyes and saw that same form standing before him. The Lord said, oh, so you want the kingdom greater than your father? I can give. Dhruva Maharaj said, I came looking for broken glass, and I have achieved the highest, most precious diamond. What could I want after your darshan? The Lord told him, you should go home, you should get married, you should take the responsibilities of the kingdom. That is your service to me. So Dhruva Maharaj became a great king. Now, very interesting, many years later, his younger brother Uttama, the reason why Suruchi would not allow Dhruva on the lap of her husband was she wanted her son there, Uttama. Uttama was killed in the forest by a yaksha. Now it is the duty of a king to provide justice. So he was not only seriously lamenting the death of his brother, but he was angry. Now people may ask, he saw God. He was self-realized. How did he fall victim to anger? Is that a defect in him? Anger is it's part of human nature. We find even the Lord, you all know the story of Narasimha Dev, when he saw little Prahlad being persecuted and tortured by his father, Narasimha Dev was angry. But his anger is perfect. Krishna tells in Gita, Kama esha krodha esha rajo guna samudbhava. That when our passionate, selfish desires are frustrated, that creates anger. Dhyayato vishayan pungsang, sangasteshu bhajayate. There's a whole system of how the human being falls into sinful activity. First, we contemplate the objects of the senses. From that contemplation, attachment in our mind. When we ponder that attachment, kama, or lust, develops. When lust is frustrated, anger. And what happens when we're angry? We lose our memory is lost. When memory is lost, intelligence is lost. When we lose our intelligence, we say things, we do things that we know we should not do. And then we fall into the pool of impious karma. But anger that is utilized for a positive purpose is divine. sometimes a parent must at least pretend to be angry to get the child to take the message seriously for the child's sake. So Dhruva Maharaj, as king, it was his duty to become angry upon such people. So he went into the Himalayas and he attacked the Yakshas. Actually, all he did is just blow his conch shell, just to show, I'm here. And just by hearing his conch shell, the whole army of about 120,000 Yakshas attacked him. And he was alone. He was fighting, and he was defeating all of them. He had such power. He had God behind him. But when they saw that they were being defeated, the Yakshas, who were all mystic yogis, who had siddhis, they created a mass illusion. Because if they could bewilder him, they could defeat him. That's the way material energy works. It's really an analogy of life. They created such an illusion where Dhruva Maharaj saw heavy winds. An entire tsunami or tidal wave was coming toward him. There was massive rain clouds. And blood and pus and all kinds of excrements were falling. And then from the rain clouds were hissing venomous snakes and lions and tigers and elephants. And they were all looking at Dhruva Maharaj right in the eyes, screaming. And poor Dhruva, he became bewildered. Even such a great devotee sometimes becomes bewildered. But then what happened is the great sages, they gathered around and they encouraged Dhruva Maharaj. They said, Dhruva, this is all just an illusion created. But the Supreme Lord is none different than His name. Chant the name of the Lord, and He will give you shelter from all of these illusions. Krishna Surya Samaya Haya Andakar. Illusion is like darkness. And Krishna, or God, is light. What is darkness? It is simply the absence of light. Where there is light, darkness is automatically dispelled. Dhruva chanted the holy names of the Lord, remembered the Lord, and the entire illusion was dispelled. For one on the spiritual path who is fighting against illusion, we should understand it is beyond us. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sachara. This illusory energy or Maya is Krishna's energy, His external energy. Daiviheshu gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita that this illusory energy, which is conducted by the three gunas, very, very difficult to overcome. Very powerful. But one who takes shelter of me can easily cross beyond it. The example is given that material energy, this illusory energy that keeps us bound to things that are not reality. It is like a vast ocean without a bottom and without shores. How to cross it? But one who takes shelter of the Lord, it becomes as easy to cross as jumping over the quantity of water contained within the small hoof print of a calf. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam that in this age of Kali, Krishna Varnam Tvasa Krishnam Sangopanga Shaparshanam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayaya yajanti hi sumedasha. The greatest weapon is the name of God. And it was like that arrow of Dhruva. Just by taking shelter of the Lord in His name, it is the panacea for all our internal diseases of the heart. He was really destroying everything. At that point, Swayambhuva Manu came down, his grandfather, and said, "Dear Dhruva Maharaj, enough is enough. It was only one yaksha that killed your brother. Why are you exterminating their whole race? The rest of them are innocent." Dhruva, you're a great devotee of the Lord. And devotees of the Lord must be exemplary in every way. You have fallen victim to unnecessary anger. And Swayambhuva Manu said, anger is one of the greatest enemies to anyone on the spiritual path. Why is that? Because when we become angry, we cause pain to other living beings. Swayambhuva Manu said, a devotee, his interest or her interest is to please God. And how does that devotee please God? By having relationships with others, by treating and greeting others with tolerance, friendliness, mercy, and equality. Even if others come against us, we should be tolerant. An example of tolerance, I will take you back to the Sequoia National Forest near in Northern California. I saw this General Grant tree. It had gaping black wounds in it from forest fires. To stand there for 3,000 years, it withstood hundreds of forest fires. But then I did a little research about those forest fires. And I found without forest fires, they can't exist. Can I tell you some of the reasons? Little analysis, scientifically discovered. First of all, the seeds in the sequoia tree are within cones. And these cones are very hard, like wood. And it's very difficult for the seeds to get out of that wood. But when there's a forest fire, the heat creates pressure and causes the seeds to come out and go into the ground. Now, how does it get into the ground? Generally, there's so many shrubs and so many everything on the ground. The forest fire burns away everything. And also all the ashes and all the smaller shrubs and bushes and trees that burn, it actually fertilizes the ground. So when the seed comes out by the grace of the forest fire, it falls into the ground, which is cleared by the forest fire, and it nourished by the forest fire. But then it needs sunlight, a lot of sunlight. And all the trees, except the gigantic sequoia trees, they're all burned away to give the opportunity for the sun to reach that little seed that's growing. So they depend on forest fires. And you know how they discover this? The forest rangers developed a system in one big forest where they put out every fire. And for 50 years, not a single new tree grew. Then they realized they need fires. This is so symbolic that the fires of life, if we learn to grow and to tolerate, they help us to become better human beings, to come closer to God, and to have higher realizations. Now, nobody likes the fires when they come. But if you liked it, you wouldn't grow in it. Just like children have exams. How many really are excited and look forward to studying for their exams? Most children really don't, but they have to. But that pressure helps them grow. If they take it seriously. If they don't, it helps them fail. That's the way life is. Swayambhuva Manu is telling Dhruva that it was only one yaksha that killed your brother. Be kind to them. Great devotees are tolerant. They are merciful. They are friendly to others. And they see everyone with equal vision. Vidyavanaya sampane brahmani gavihastini suni chaiva swapakecha pandita samadarshana. When we perceive God in our own heart, we perceive our own identity in relation with God, and we see every living being as part of God. And therefore, we love and we respect every living entity with equal vision. We may have to deal with them differently. You may embrace your god brother or god sister, but you will not embrace a tiger or a serpent. But you can see the essence within them and respect them. That is a symptom of one who knows themselves. And when you have these qualities, God is pleased. And when Krishna is pleased, he helps you to overcome the grand illusion of I and mine. That I am this body and everything in relation to this body is mine. We understand that I am the eternal soul. I'm a part of God. I'm the eternal servant of God. And what is mine? Everything is God's property. Bhoktaram jakatapasam. What is mine is the opportunity to use God's property according to God's will. Krishna tells us when we live by these simple principles, we find eternal peace and bliss. So therefore, stop this fighting and fix your mind and take shelter of the Supreme Lord. So Dhruva Maharaj stopped the fighting. Kuvera, and here I'm going to begin today's class. Kuvera is a relative of the Yakshas. He was so happy that Dhruva stopped the fighting. He came down. Now Kuvera is the treasurer of the Devatas. He's a very big person. He has all the wealth of the heavens at his disposal. He was so pleased with Dhruva for being so kind, so tolerant, and so forgiving to his relatives. He said, I want to give you any benediction. Ask for anything, and I have it. Now we have some bankers here. I see in the from London, Shailesh Govindya, Nikunja Bihari from How would you like Kuvera to offer you this benediction? He's the head of the biggest bank in the universe. Yes? Indra, Vayu, Agni, they have to get withdrawals from Kuvera. They have to get loans and everything. He's the ultimate banker of the universe. And he's saying, anything you want, I will give it. Dhruva Maharaj, he said, if you must give me something, there's only 2 benedictions I desire. Please grant me unflinching faith and remembrance in the Supreme Lord of the universe, Krishna. Unflinching faith and remembrance in the Lord. Now in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that people who are of less intelligence, they worship demigods for material benedictions. So one may ask, why Dhruva Maharaj asked a benediction from a demigod? Because Dhruva Maharaj was so kind-hearted and he was so respectful that because Kuvera offered him a benediction, out of respect for Kuvera, he had to ask for something. So he asked for the only thing that was really meaningful in his life. It is said that all the religious scriptures of all the religions in all of the universe, there's so many laws, there's so many philosophies, there's so many explanations, there's so many histories, there's so many stories. Everything is meant to fulfill 2 principles. The essence of everything. To always remember Krishna and to never forget Krishna. That's all Dhruva Maharaj asked for. And in asking for that, he wanted to show the world that that is the greatest treasure. There is nothing more valuable than the awakening of the God consciousness within our hearts. The supreme treasure is within us. In the Bible, Lord Jesus said, what is the use if you gain the whole world, but you lose your own soul? What is our life? Death must come. The power of time marches on. With every movement of the second hand of the clock, our fate is coming closer. And what can we take with us? Our fame, our wealth, our properties, our degrees, MAs, PhDs, all the people around us. They're tragically torn away from us at death. Therefore, Krishna says, Dukhalayam ashashvatam. It's very painful. But our soul is eternal. Our relationship with God is eternal. Our relationship with each other on this spiritual platform is eternal. And we will find that so beautifully illustrated later on in the story.